Rancher refused every woman until an Apache widow asked, "Do you want a wife or just shelter?" He lived where the road ended and the land began to speak for itself. The rancher woke up before the sun every day, not because he enjoyed the early hours, but because silence suited him better than people. The valley still slept when he stepped outside, boots pressing into cold dirt, breath visible in the quiet air. The land was wide and honest. It asked for work and gave back just enough to survive. That was the kind of agreement he understood. People in the nearby town knew his name, but very few knew the man. To them, he was the rancher who never married, the one who refused every woman who showed interest. Some said he was proud, others said he was broken. A few whispered that he was afraid. None of them were completely right, but none of them were completely wrong either. Years earlier, he had learned a lesson he never forgot. Caring too deeply came at a cost. Life had taken something from him once, something he never replaced. After that, he decided it was safer to keep his world small. A man could survive with land, animals, and routine. Feelings were unpredictable. People left. The land stayed. His ranch was not fancy. The house was solid but simple, built with his own hands over many seasons. Every beam and nail carried a memory of sweat and patience. Inside, there were no decorations, no soft touches meant to impress anyone, just what was needed. A table worn smooth by years of meals eaten alone. A chair by the window where he drank coffee and watched the horizon. A bed that held only sleep, never dreams. Women had come and gone over the years. Some were kind. Some were curious. Some believed they could change him. Each time he was polite but firm. He never raised his voice. He never insulted them. He simply said no. No explanations, no promises, no second chances. At first the refusals were awkward. Over time they became expected. Eventually people stopped asking. That suited him just fine. The town tried to pull him back into the world more than once. Church gatherings, seasonal events, friendly dinners where someone always tried to seat him next to an available woman. He attended out of respect, stayed long enough to be polite, then returned to his ranch before nightfall. He never stayed late. Night was when thoughts grew loud. Work was his shield. He worked until his muscles burned and his hands were rough enough to match the land. Fences needed fixing. Animals needed care. Fields needed attention. There was always something that demanded focus, and focus kept memories quiet. But even the busiest days had moments of pause. Sometimes he would stop in the middle of a task and look out across the land. The valley stretched wide, open, beautiful in a way that felt almost painful. In those moments, something old stirred in him, a memory of laughter, a voice he no longer heard, a future he once imagined and then buried. He always pushed those thoughts away. Loneliness was not something he talked about, but it lived with him like a shadow. It followed him through every long evening and every quiet meal. He told himself it was a choice, that he was stronger this way. He believed it most days. On the harder days, he simply endured. People often misunderstood him. They thought refusing love meant he felt nothing. The truth was the opposite. He felt too much. That was the problem. He had learned that opening his heart did not make life gentler, it made loss sharper. So he locked that part of himself away and threw the key into the routine of his days. The land became his witness. It saw him struggle through harsh seasons and calm ones. It saw him age slowly, lines forming around his eyes from sun and thought. It accepted him without questions. He liked that. As years passed, his name became tied to his solitude. He's not the marrying kind, people said. He made his peace. They did not know how often he stood by his window at night, listening to the wind move through the grass, wondering if peace and emptiness were sometimes the same thing. Still, nothing changed. Until the day something unexpected appeared at the edge of his land. But before that day came, his life was predictable, safe, quiet. He believed that was all he needed. He believed that refusing every woman was not a loss but a decision that kept his world stable. He did not know that stability could also be a kind of slow loneliness. On that morning, like many before it, he saddled his horse and checked the far fence line. The sky was clear, the air sharp. Another day of work awaited him, another day exactly like the last. He had no idea that his carefully built solitude was already beginning to crack, not because he went looking for change, but because change was finally brave enough to find him. And he was not ready for it. The change did not arrive loudly. It did not come with trouble or warning. It came quietly, the way most important things do. The rancher first noticed her near the old cottonwood tree that marked the edge of his land. At a distance, he thought she was just another traveler who had lost the road. That happened sometimes. People underestimated the size of the valley and overestimated their own strength. Usually they waved him down, asked for directions, then moved on. But she did not wave. She stood still, as if waiting for the land itself to decide something. He slowed his horse and studied her carefully. She wore simple clothes, worn but clean. Nothing about her looked careless. Her posture was straight, even after what looked like a long journey. There was no fear in her stance, only patience. Beside her were two small bundles and a calm stillness that made him uneasy in a way he could not explain. When he finally approached, she met his eyes without challenge and without hesitation. That alone surprised him. Most people either stared too hard or looked away too quickly. She did neither. "I don't want trouble," she said first. Her voice was steady, low, and clear. "I'm asking for shelter, just for a short time." He dismounted slowly. He had heard many versions of that request before. Travelers, workers, people running from something they never fully explained. His answer was almost always the same. "I don't take people in," he said, not unkindly, just honest. She nodded as if she expected that answer. "I understand." That should have been the end of it. Most people pushed after that. She did not. Instead, she looked past him toward the ranch house in the distance. Her eyes did not linger with desire. They lingered with calculation, the kind that comes from experience. "I'm a widow," she said simply. "Apache. I'm moving to protect my children. They're not with me right now. I won't stay long." Her words were direct. No emotion pressed into them. No attempt to gain sympathy. That made him listen more closely than he wanted to. He crossed his arms, feeling the familiar urge to end the conversation. "This isn't a place for staying," he said. "I don't offer charity." She turned back to him then, really looking at him for the first time, not judging, not pleading, just seeing. "That's not what I'm asking for," she said. There was a pause. The wind moved through the grass. The horse shifted its weight. Then she asked the question that would not leave him alone. "Do you want a wife," she said, "or just shelter?" The words were calm, almost curious. There was no promise in them, no suggestion, just a question placed carefully between them like something fragile. For a moment he could not speak. No one had ever asked him that. Women before her had asked for love, for marriage, for a chance. They had spoken of feelings, futures, hopes. This was different. She was not offering herself. She was asking him to be honest with himself. "I want neither," he said finally. She accepted that answer too easily. "That's what most men say," she replied. But it's rarely the full truth. Something in him tightened. He did not like being seen so clearly by a stranger. "I don't owe you explanations," he said. "No," she agreed. "You don't." Another pause settled between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. He realized then that she was not afraid of silence. That unsettled him even more. "I'll work," she added. "I won't be a burden, just a roof, a place to rest. Then I'll go." He looked at her hands. They were strong hands, not soft, hands that knew labor and patience. He saw no weakness there, only endurance. He should have said no. That was the safe choice, the familiar choice, but something about her presence disrupted the careful order of his thoughts. She did not feel like a request. She felt like a turning point, and he resented that feeling. "Temporary," he said at last. You follow my rules, you leave when I say it's time. She nodded once. That's fair. As they walked toward the house, he felt an unease he could not name, not fear, not interest. Something closer to recognition, as if two long, separate paths had crossed for reasons neither fully understood. Inside the house, she did not comment on the emptiness. She did not look around with surprise or judgment. She placed her bundle down neatly and waited. He showed her a small room, bare but clean. That's all I have, he said. It's enough, she replied. The first evening passed quietly. She helped prepare a simple meal without asking, as if reading the rhythm of the place. They ate in silence, not awkward silence, just quiet. He noticed how she listened more than she spoke, how she moved with care, respecting the space as if it were alive. Later, when the light faded, she spoke again. I won't stay longer than needed, she said. I know how to leave a place without taking from it. He did not respond, but her words followed him into the night. Lying in his bed, staring at the ceiling, he realized something had already changed. The house felt different, not fuller, just less empty in a way that unsettled him. Her question replayed in his mind. Do you want a wife or just shelter? He told himself it meant nothing. She was passing through. He was offering a roof, nothing more. Yet deep down, something old and buried had shifted, stirred awake by a question he had never allowed himself to answer. Outside, the land remained quiet. Inside, for the first time in years, his thoughts did not follow their usual path, and that disturbed him more than he wanted to admit. The days that followed did not bring sudden changes. Nothing dramatic happened. There were no long talks by the fire, no emotional confessions, no promises made. Instead, life moved forward in small, quiet steps, the kind that are easy to miss unless you are paying close attention. The widow woke before dawn, just as the rancher did. On the first morning, he noticed movement in the kitchen while the sky was still dark. She was careful, almost silent, as if she did not want to disturb the house. By the time he came in from checking the animals, water was warming on the stove and simple food was being prepared. You don't have to do that, he said, more out of habit than irritation. I know, she replied, but I can. He let it be. She did not ask questions about his past. She did not ask how long he had lived alone or why he never married. That absence of curiosity gave him room to breathe. People usually wanted answers from him, explanations for his solitude. She seemed content to let silence exist. After breakfast, she asked what needed to be done. He gave her small tasks at first, expecting complaints or hesitation. None came. She worked steadily, without rushing or resting too long. Whether it was mending, cleaning, or helping outside, she treated each task with care. He noticed that she never wasted movement. Everything she did had purpose. As the days passed, he found himself adjusting his routine without meaning to. He stayed inside a little longer in the mornings. He came back to the house earlier in the evenings. He told himself it was practical. Having another person under his roof required attention. That was all. But the truth was harder to ignore. The house no longer echoed in the same way. There was a quiet presence that filled the empty spaces without demanding anything. It unsettled him, not because it was unpleasant, but because it felt unfamiliar. Sometimes they spoke while working, not about feelings, just about the land, the weather, the animals. She had lived a life shaped by responsibility, and it showed. When she spoke of her past, it was brief and factual. Loss was mentioned, but never used as weight. One evening, as they sat at the table after a long day, she spoke softly. Pain doesn't leave, she said, but it learns to sit quietly if you don't fight it. He looked at her, surprised. You talk like someone who's made peace with hard things. She met his gaze. Peace doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing how you carry what stays. Her words stayed with him long after she went to her room. He began to notice things he had not paid attention to in years. The way the light changed in the kitchen in the late afternoon. The sound of another person breathing in the house at night. the simple comfort of shared meals, even when spoken words were few. At times, memories surfaced without warning, moments from a life he had tried to bury. He found himself remembering how it felt to come home to someone, how it felt to speak without guarding every word. These thoughts made him restless. One night he stood outside longer than usual, staring at the sky. He wondered when he had decided that solitude was the only way forward. He could not remember a single moment. It had happened slowly, like the closing of a door no one noticed until it was locked. Inside, she was mending a tear in one of his old jackets. She did not ask permission. She simply saw something that needed care and gave it. When he noticed later, he held the jacket in his hands longer than necessary. No one had done something like that for him in years. "You didn't have to," he said. "I wanted to," she replied. "That's different." He had no answer for that. The days grew warmer. The work grew heavier. They moved around each other with ease, learning each other's habits without discussion. She respected his space. He began slowly to respect her presence, but comfort has a way of waking fear. One afternoon, he found her standing at the edge of the field, looking toward the hills. Her expression was distant, guarded. "You're thinking about leaving," he said. "Yes," she answered honestly. Something tightened in his chest. Soon, soon enough. The word landed heavier than it should have. That night sleep did not come easily. He lay awake, listening to the quiet, knowing it would return fully once she was gone. He told himself that was how it should be. This arrangement was temporary. That was the agreement. Still, a question pressed against him, one he did not want to face. What if temporary had already changed him? The next morning he was distant, shorter with his words, more guarded. She noticed but did not push. Later that day, as they worked together repairing a fence, he spoke without thinking. "When you leave," he said, "you'll be safer moving on quickly." She looked at him, reading more into his words than he intended. "Are you asking me to leave?" He hesitated. "I'm reminding you that this isn't permanent," she nodded slowly. "I never thought it was." The rest of the day passed in heavy silence. That evening she packed some of her things, not all, just enough to show she was serious. When he saw the bundle near the door, something in him finally broke through the walls he had built. He realized then that he was not afraid of her staying. He was afraid of wanting her to. Later, as the fire burned low, he spoke. "I don't know how to live with someone anymore," he said. "I only know how to survive alone." She looked at him gently. "Surviving isn't the same as living," she said, "but I'm not asking you to change overnight." He met her eyes. For the first time, he did not look away. "I don't know what I want," he admitted. "That's honest," she replied, "and honesty is a place to start." That night, the house held a different kind of quiet, not the empty silence he was used to, but something uncertain, fragile, and real. Two wounded lives under one roof, neither healed, neither broken beyond repair. And for the first time in many years, the rancher allowed himself to wonder if solitude was truly strength, or just a habit he had never questioned. The answer did not come that night. But the question stayed. The calm they had found did not last. It never does when two people carry unfinished stories inside them. The change came slowly at first. A look held too long, a silence that felt heavier than before. The rancher began to sense it even before anything happened. The land itself felt restless, as if it knew what he was trying not to face. People in town had noticed her by then. A woman living on his ranch did not stay unnoticed for long. Whispers began the way they always did, quiet at first, then bold. Some were curious, some were careless. A few were unkind, though never to her face. He heard things when he went to town for supplies, questions that sounded harmless but were not. "Didn't think you'd ever have company," someone said with a smile that asked for answers. "She staying long?" another asked. He gave the same response every time. "She's passing through." The words tasted wrong now. One afternoon, he returned earlier than usual and found her standing by the fence, speaking with a man from town. Nothing about the moment was improper, yet something sharp rose inside him. Not anger, fear. When the man left, she turned toward the house without speaking. He followed. "You don't need to talk to them," he said, the edge in his voice surprising them both. She stopped. "I was answering a question." "You don't owe anyone anything," he replied. She faced him then. "Neither do you." The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. That night she asked him something carefully. "Are you ashamed of me being here?" The question struck deeper than any accusation. "No," he said quickly. Then slower, "I'm afraid of what it means." She nodded as if she had already known. "Fear can look like distance," she said. "I've seen that before." He did not sleep much that night. The next days were harder. He worked longer hours, avoiding the house. She respected his space, but the gap between them grew wider. Comfort turned into tension. Words went unspoken, piling up like stones. Then the past came knocking, not as memory but as consequence. A letter arrived one morning. She read it quietly, folded it carefully, and placed it back in her bag. She did not tell him right away. When she finally did, her voice was calm. "I need to leave soon," she said. "It's time." He felt the ground shift under him. "Is something wrong?" "No," she answered. "Something is waiting." He nodded, pretending acceptance, but inside him panic took hold. The thought of the house returning to its old silence filled him with a loss he had no name for. That night he made a decision born from fear, not reason. "It's better if you go tomorrow," he said. She looked at him steadily. "Is that what you want?" He did not answer. "That's what I thought," she said quietly. She packed everything this time. The next morning she stood by the door, ready to leave. He watched, unmoving, his chest tight. Every instinct told him to stop her. Every old wound told him to let her go. "Thank you for the shelter," she said. "You gave me more than a roof." He swallowed. "I'm not good at this," he said, "letting people stay." "I know," she replied, "but you were trying." That was harder to hear than any blame. She stepped outside. The sound of her leaving echoed louder than any argument could have. When the door closed, the house felt empty in a way it never had before. Not quiet, hollow. He went through the motions that day without purpose. The work felt heavy. The land felt distant. The routine that once protected him now felt meaningless. That evening he found the jacket she had mended hanging where he left it. The careful stitching caught the light. A simple act of care, offered without expectation. Something broke then, not loudly but completely. He realized he had sent her away not because he did not care, but because he cared too much. He had mistaken fear for wisdom and solitude for safety. For the first time, he admitted the truth to himself. He did not just offer her shelter. He wanted a life that included her. The realization scared him, but it also brought clarity. Regret followed close behind. He saddled his horse as the sun dipped low. He did not know where she had gone, only the direction. He rode hard, driven by something stronger than habit. He found her just beyond the far road, resting before nightfall. When she saw him, she did not look surprised, only tired. "I was hoping you'd come," she said softly. "I was wrong," he replied. "About a lot of things." She waited. "I thought pushing you away would keep things simple," he continued. "But it only showed me how empty simple can be." Silence passed between them, gentler this time. "I don't know how to promise anything," he said, "but I know I don't want to live without trying." She studied his face, searching for honesty. She found it. "I'm not asking for certainty," she said. "Only truth." He nodded. "Then the truth is this: I don't want just shelter, and I don't want to keep running from wanting more." She breathed out slowly, as if releasing something heavy. "That's enough for now." They turned back toward the ranch together, not as answers to each other's pain, but as companions willing to face uncertainty side by side. The house welcomed them back with quiet walls and open space. Nothing was fixed that night, but something important had changed. Fear no longer led the way. The return to the ranch was quiet, but it was not the same kind of quiet that once ruled the place. It carried intention now, choice. The kind that feels heavier than habit but also more honest. They did not speak much on the ride back. Words were no longer urgent. What mattered had already been said. When they reached the house, the sky was darkening and the first stars were beginning to show. He held the door open for her, a small gesture but one he had never done before. She noticed. She did not comment. That night they ate together as they always had, but the space between them felt different. Not tense, not uncertain, just careful, like two people learning how to stand on new ground without falling. He slept better than he had in weeks. The days that followed were not perfect. They did not suddenly become a story without struggle. Old habits do not disappear overnight, and neither do old fears. But something had shifted. He no longer worked to escape the house. He worked knowing there was someone to return to. She stayed not because she was trapped, but because she chose to. They spoke more openly now, not with grand speeches, but with honesty. He admitted when silence felt safer than truth. She admitted when patience felt heavy. They learned to stop conversations before they turned into distance. One morning, as they repaired a gate together, he spoke without planning to. "I don't know what kind of husband I'd be," he said. "I've never been good at needing anyone." She smiled gently. "Needing isn't weakness," she replied. "It's trust." The words settled into him slowly. Town talk continued, but it no longer carried the same weight. When people asked questions, he no longer rushed to defend or explain. He simply said, "She's here." That was enough. She began to bring small pieces of herself into the house. A woven cloth placed on the table, a plant near the window, nothing dramatic. Just signs of life returning to a space that had long been untouched by care. One evening, she spoke of her children. Not with sadness, but with hope. He listened, really listened, and found himself imagining a future that did not end in solitude. He surprised himself one night by saying, if they ever need a place to land, this ranch would be open to them. She looked at him with quiet gratitude. That means more than you know. Seasons changed. The land responded as it always had, steady and patient. But inside the house, something new took root. Trust grew slowly, like a plant tended carefully. He stopped seeing the ranch as a place to hide. It became a place to share. One morning, as sunlight filled the kitchen, she asked the question again. Not the same words, but the same meaning. "What do you want now?" He did not answer right away. He had learned not to rush honesty. "I want a partner," he said finally. "Not someone to save me, not someone to fill space, someone to walk beside me." She nodded. "That's what I want too." There was no dramatic proposal, no moment shaped by pressure or expectation. Just two people choosing the same direction. They built their life the same way the ranch had been built, one steady decision at a time. Some days were quiet. Some days were hard, but none were empty. He learned that strength did not come from standing alone. It came from standing honest, from allowing someone to see his flaws and stay anyway. She found stability not in walls, but in mutual respect, not in promises, but in consistency. Together, they created a home that held both of their pasts without being ruled by them. Years later, people would say the rancher finally settled down. That love found him when he least expected it. Those words were simple but incomplete. The truth was deeper. He had not been refusing love all those years. He had been waiting to understand what love actually asked of him. And when an Apache widow stood at the edge of his land and asked whether he wanted a wife or just shelter, she had given him something no one else ever had. A chance to choose honestly. In the end, the ranch became more than land and labor. It became proof that even the most guarded hearts can open, not through force, but through patience, respect, and the courage to answer a simple question with truth. And that choice changed everything.